This is Lauren.
This is Trey.
And this
is the Partnership Podcast. Hello, friends. This was an interesting conversation. Lauren shares her appreciation for her clients, and then we transition into something I find awkward to talk about: childhood sexuality. I think it's an uncomfortable conversation for most people because we don't want to associate children and sexuality. So we have a nuanced conversation about when it's appropriate and why it's important to talk to your kids about sex and boundaries, and enjoy. Thank you, Sugar.
I love my clients so much.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just looking at the faces. Not their faces, but like their names, and I'm really, really thankful.
What's been fun about work lately?
I was just telling you before we hopped on this that when people come to their 15-minute consults now, usually they are coming from a direct referral from another human being who has already worked with me in some capacity, and or has found the podcast or the Instagram, or came as a referral from a care provider that they trust. And so it's just a beautiful experience. I just love it so much. And then the same clients go on to have the most beautiful breakthroughs, and I really feel like in this brand new way I am seeing so much purpose from the years and years of pain that I had to go through, and it is so heart-filling. And for me, heart-connected work is imperative to my well-being. It's not everything. I also need play and fun and joy and silliness and escape and family and all of these other things, but it's very humbling. Like I feel very honored to be doing this work, and also just so thankful.
What have you gotten better at since you first started to now?
Trusting my own instincts.
Like with your people?
Yeah, things rise up in me when someone's talking, right? I literally feel it in my sacral. It's part of my human design, right? Like or an or oh. And when you're new at anything, right? You want to check that. You want to like be like, let me cross-reference this with other wise minds. And so in the beginning, I would feel that, and sometimes I would speak it into existence, but then sometimes I would take it back and I would, go to my favorite authors and favorite researchers and kind of compare, like, is this a wise thing to say, to suggest? And then once I had negated it or affirmed it, then I would share with a client, which was beautiful. It was a needed thing. But now that I've done it, that very thing for years, I can like, the book is already on the shelf in my mind. I could be like, yeah, that rise still comes up, that I have an idea. And I've gotten much more comfortable. This is going to make you laugh, because in The Good Wife, the show we're watching, remember that one judge always says, in your opinion. I use that phrase, I have an opinion that I'd love to share with you, so often, because I share with every client, and we share it in here all the time. These are our opinions, right? This is an idea that popped in my head. This is an invitation I have for you. If you would like to try this, please do. If your intuition says, I want you to listen to that and respect that. And so I've gotten more comfortable with a client disagreeing with me, which we celebrate in a space with me. I've gotten more comfortable with not saying like things like, this may sound silly. I'll instead say, this may sound playful, or I'd like you to try something. Because you and I, again, say on this podcast all the time that sexuality is so risky and vulnerable. And so often we see kind of our ability to play frozen in time with some traumatic experience or a time in life where we needed to step up and be the adult. And so we stopped drawing, we stopped climbing trees, we stopped exploring. so much of our sexual selves should have been developing alongside of us as children. But I see so much creativity and exploration stifled as well. And so when, I'm working with clients to restore an appreciation and a love of the body, including their genitals, we sometimes need to do childlike things to get back into that. And I think I've just gotten more confident because I've seen it work. I always believed in my processes after going to school. I was like, oh, I want to do this, this, and this, and this. I think people could heal and their lives could change. As I watched it change my life, and I believed in it, and now I have seen it work again and again and again and again. And so now I'm even more comfortable with saying, you don't have to work with me. You do not have to. And these are my techniques. And come play, come learn, come explore. And if you don't want to, that is fine. But I have seen it heal people.
So I stopped drawing when I was in the 5th grade. And today, if you were to ask me to draw a picture, it would look like a 5th grader's. Baseball. I've played catch with other grown men that I'm assuming stopped playing catch in Little League because they still catch the ball and throw the ball, say, like a developing child. You said stifle. What does that have to do, with childhood and sexuality? And is that not taboo, but is it kind of a sensitive subject because we generally don't want to consider children sexual beings?
Such a good question. Let me break it into a couple parts. You shared earlier that you stopped practicing drawing, so you would draw at a younger level. And the throwing is such a perfect analogy. Most human beings who exist in this world today got some sex ed in middle school and maybe got another version of it in high school. I work every day with people who were separated by gender, even for sex ed in school. Anyway, that's all they were given, which at best is incomplete. At medium best, or lesser, is incomplete and inaccurate. And at worst was literally not anatomically correct, not scientifically or medically accurate, and was based upon a certain culture's moral value system. Not even a comprehensive understanding of STIs, not even the process of arousal and pleasure and how that works into a sexual response, not even verbiage of how to speak about consent and how to have delicious conversations around these things, right? Lord have mercy. So if we're looking at just that, I would say most of my clients' understanding of the expansiveness of their sexuality is exactly the equivalent of what you just said with the playing catch. These are grown adults who have full range of motion. They could, right? I'm sure you look at it and you're like, that's funny, right? What does it look like to catch like a Little League player? What do you mean?
Oh, okay. So if you're just audio only, it is the gloves up and then there's a little, your glove hand comes up and then your other hand kind of comes here to kind of help brace.
Oh.
Yeah, this is a common thing I see in children, and I've played catch with men that still do this.
Okay.
Or just not trusting, I guess not trusting where the ball is or moving out of the way of it.
I love that.
So moving your body out of the way of the line of the ball just in case it hits you.
Okay.
So
what's a different way to catch a ball? How would a Major League Baseball player catch a ball? And I know you're not an expert
with
on
ease.
Major League.
Yeah,
Okay.
with a lot of ease, understanding that the hand needs to go down for certain situations, or the fingers need to go up, or you need to go out actually to catch the ball at your furthest point. And these are the more nuanced things. Or you actually need to catch the ball closer to your body so you can actually bring it down, say, to tag a player. So that's where the artwork of receiving comes from.
Right.
Versus not wanting to get hit by the ball.
This is
Maybe that's
we
it.
have just stumbled into the most beautiful analogy. Thank you.
Little
Sir.
kids generally don't want to get hit by the ball. And then also, if they have a traumatic event where they do, say, misjudge it and the ball hits them in the face or the body or something like that, they're kind of done with the sport. I've seen that too, where it's just trauma. Getting hit in the face with a baseball sucks.
Well, gentle audience, there you have your sexuality education lesson. We can end this podcast now. That was incredible. You said we have a hard time imagining children as sexual beings. I would argue
ridiculous. It's also ridiculous too because, I mean, we go through puberty at such a young age. Like, my mother has told me stories of like me rubbing my own dick when I was 2. Nobody taught me that.
No, because it feels good, right? So to say that Little League baseball player is not a baseball player, like that's just silliness. Are they a Major League Baseball player yet? No. Are they going to be doing the same things they do at the Dodger Stadium? No. They need different knowledge and different techniques to play the game. Children are inherently sexual beings who inherently self-select what is safe and unsafe for them. The research shows that given comprehensive sexuality education from the toddlerhood and given a family that expresses consent and boundaries and who are honoring of one another's bodies, children will self-select what they are ready for and not ready for. The average age of first penetrative intercourse for a child who was given sexuality education, 21 years old. The myth is that it makes children more inherently sexually active. That is a lie. It is wrong. A child isn't probably going to go play in a major league stadium with the Dodgers. It would be unsafe. The Dodger wouldn't play with this child, right? Like throwing a ball. How would they throw the ball like so fast? They would kill.
It would have to be underhand or on the ground.
It would truly be dangerous, right? We, as a society, as cultures, we know how to dialogue about these things. We just don't know how to dialogue about sex and sexuality because culturally it became so taboo. We don't talk about that stuff. It's not polite. That's private. And I would argue that when we relegate sex and sexuality to the bedroom only, right, to the privacy of homes, all we do is continue to perpetuate the harm that has been done to the people who have been harmed for all of ages and elevate the people who were never harmed by it. There are always going to be people using sex and sexuality to control another because we live in a broken world. When we continue to say, no, don't talk about that, we only continue to silence those who have always been silenced.
What would you say to someone who says there's no reason you to ever give a 3 or 4-year-old like sexuality or consent like a conversation?
I would say, what are you afraid of?
What's an example? What's an example of a healthy conversation with that?
Talking about their body and the accurate names for their body parts and what it looks like to say no. You know what it really looks like is parents modeling consensual behavior with their own children. It's not making a 3-year-old give a kiss to grandpa goodbye if they don't want to. People make it seem like it's all of this reading books on penetrative intercourse. And that's not what it is. This is a 3-year-old. Model to a 3-year-old what it looks like to be in healthy and unhealthy relationships and get out of an unhealthy one. I think the reason people are so uncomfortable with it is they know they have to change their own lives. Children are watching. No matter if you want to or not, parents and adults in the lives of children are sexuality educators. And you know what they're watching first? The relationships that we're in. How people take advantage of us or how we require respect. How we respect the bodies of others. If you're walking through the house smacking your partner on their ass without their consent and your child is seeing them bristle, they're going to think that that's a tolerated behavior in the world. I have had so many clients whose parents have commented on the bodies of other people. She shouldn't be wearing that, right? Or she's asking for it. Okay, children hear those things. So appropriate sex ed for a 3-year-old, talk about consent, talk about asking for hugs, talk about saying you can and cannot touch this, that, and the other thing. Give them the appropriate names of their genitals, just like you talk about an elbow. Yeah, when they touch themselves in the bathtub, when they're rubbing up against these things, ask them, how does that feel?
Is that appropriate?
Yes, and then a child's going to go, good. And you go, awesome. And then you're going to walk away. So many parents talk about the getting hit with the baseball thing.
Yeah.
Well, shame their toddler. Don't do that. Smells like you have your hands in the garbage pail. Don't ever touch yourself like that again.
Garbage pail?
Yes.
What do you mean?
So for a little one with a vulva, okay, if they are touching and exploring their own vulva and vagina with their own little chubby fingers, and then those chubby fingers were also eating strawberries earlier and all these different things, there is healthy vaginal flora and bacteria in our genitals, right? There's sweat down there. There's all of these wonderful secretions. Our bodies know how to keep it clean and healthy. Vaginas are self-cleaning ovens is what everybody says. But I cannot tell you how many women or people with vulvas that I work with whose mothers said something harmful when they were between the ages of 2 and 5 because they smelt their hands.
Got it.
2 and 5.
And that fucks them up for
Now,
decades? Got it.
I work with majority like late 20s, early 30s, and then again 50s. That is my like primary clientele.
Okay. Can I give an example of a healthy conversation with a child?
Sure.
I was dating a woman about 10 years ago. She had a 4-year-old. And we had a conversation where I was going to give the 4-year-old a bath. So the three of us had a conversation where Trey doesn't touch privates. Only mom touches privates. And so we had that conversation together, and the child's little light bulbs went off where it was like, okay, these are privates. She was pointing to her chest. These are privates. She was pointing to her crotch. And yeah, I don't touch those things. Only mom touches those things. And it was like a wonderful, healthy, and then she would she would play with it where it's like privates. These are privates. And I go, yes, those are privates. So
yeah,
and it was a great conversation.
It doesn't have to be heavy.
And it was the three of us.
Yeah.
And it was we didn't call it a boundary at the time to a 4-year-old, but it was,
yes,
this is what's expected.
And children should also know that they can come to a parent and share anything with them, right? So if Trey had crossed a boundary, children need to know that parents are safe people. We will hear a statement sometimes from usually like fatherly roles, but mothers will say it too. If anyone ever touches my daughter, I'll kill him. What this sometimes does is keeps a child in a girl's body from coming to her father.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
Because she's afraid of
The repercussions.
Yes. So we need to make sure that our responses are not escalated or harsh, and that the child knows that they will never be in trouble. The adult will be in trouble. Right? So child taking a bath, not her job. You should be removed from the home if you cross the boundary, not the child. And so often little ones will switch that in their brains because they don't know the difference. A couple of years ago, you might not even remember this. We were all playing roughhousing around here in the house, and we were playing some game. Something was happening, and you like smacked the baby on the butt. Do you remember this? It was like something was going on. No, this is what happened. It was in the moment. You did this. You immediately recognized that this was not okay. Like this was a boundary. And I want to say the baby was like, if she's 13 now, she would probably have been like 11. We were in this house, and you go, oh my God. And you were like, that was not okay. I should not have done that. That is your body. And she immediately was like, no, it's fine. Like we were doing whatever. And you were like, no, okay. You should know that I will never do that to you. And that no one gets to do that to you playfully, like without your consent. And it was just so cool because you were delineating. You know, like the role I play as like stepdad in this house, no, that's not appropriate. And you shouldn't expect that type of behavior from other men my age in your life. And that's what I'm saying, in that people in the lives of kids are always sex educators, whether they know it or not. It is so much less about what you're telling them. It's so much more about what you're showing them and how you're reinforcing that, right? The reason I say, you know, if you walk in on a child masturbating, which please understand, y'all, until puberty, it is usually not a masturbation with the goal of orgasm. That's not what it is. It is literally an exploring of a pleasure zone on their bodies. And so for young children to know that they get to decide what feels good and does not feel good, and get to say no thank you to things that don't feel good, is intuition. And when we like smother that, squish it, squelch it out of children, that is when we see that they don't know how to express no. Because we've told them forever that they don't know, right? What? Why are we making them question their own bodies? We're assigning a moral value to something that they're doing as a toddler. It's wild. I know it's an uncomfortable conversation because adults have got to get a hold of themselves. I know that we haven't been given enough education. So I work with a sexuality educator, but your child is an inherently sexual being who will develop beautifully on their own, provided they are given accurate and complete information. Don't take your morality and put it on your child. They don't have a fully formed frontal lobe. They are not thinking erotically. There's none of that in a child. I talk to people every day, do sexual timelines every day. Most people touch their bodies as young children. No one yet has told me that they connected it to some erotic thought, because it's not in their brains. Sure, maybe it's the Disney movie that they saw, right? And it was kissing, or it was this, or it was like bodies smushing, but it was not. You know, Trey and I talk about like red light districts and all this type of stuff, and kind of the four cornerstones of eroticism and all these things. These are patterns of the adult brain.
Yeah, I think I was like, erotic thoughts were like 8th grade. And I was lucky enough where like porn wasn't a thing when I was in the 8th grade. So yeah, that would make me 13 or 14. So it would make me going through puberty.
Ding, ding.
That was the first time I came. And before that, it was, I would masturbate to, like, it would feel like an orgasm where I would have to stop. The first time I like ejaculated, I was a teenager.
Yeah. Clients tell me their first ejaculatory experience all the time. It is usually in puberty, is usually around 7th, depending on the development of the child. And that is usually when the brain starts to, absolutely go to erotic thoughts, which then we absolutely need to be talking about porn as a version of the Fast and the Furious, right? We absolutely need to be talking about these things.
Do you say what that means?
Okay. So one of our favorite analogies in the sexuality education world is, imagine a world in which we taught young people to drive by giving them the Fast and the Furious series of movies.
The franchise.
Right?
Yeah.
We were like, this is all you need. Have fun. Okay? We didn't tell them that these were professional stunt drivers. We didn't tell them about how movies are made. We didn't tell them about road signs and stoplights and yellow lines and what to do in the median and when to use a turn signal. We didn't do any of this. We didn't have them do behind the wheel, or however many in my state, it was like 40 hours of like one-on-one driving with a parent.
Also, show me the scene where they stop to get gas.
Right?
Show me that scene.
Or where they get their oil changed, or their tires rotated.
Yeah,
show me the scene where they learned how to care for their vehicle. Show me the scene
I
where...
think there's a lot of those scenes. I think there's probably a lot of like dialogue when they're wrenching on the engine.
Okay.
I don't know.
I haven't watched them in a long time. I've
do
like
one
them.
of them.
Here's the other thing.
Paul Walker, rest in peace.
Fast and the Furious movies are enjoyable to watch. I love a car chase. Love them. Okay. When we do not talk about the joy that can be experienced by watching Fast and the Furious and the difference of being a responsible driver on the road, and the difference of that would be a problem. But I was taught the difference from a very young age by having behavior modeled. I got to see lots of other people. Okay. We have taken sex and sexuality. Obviously, people aren't having sex in front of children. I am not encouraging that. I am encouraging open and honest dialogue. I am encouraging all of the books. I will link my Amazon book list that I recommend for families. I'm encouraging that you have a ton of books on your shelf. I'm encouraging that you show and model consensual behavior between you and partners that come and go in your house, between friends, between your phone calls, between family members that you let in your life that drain the living daylights out of you.
As a man, I'd want to make it less taboo for my kids, because in case anything ever happened, I would want my child to come to me. I'd want to teach them consent, what's right, what's wrong, but most importantly, not make it taboo or shameful so they keep it inside. If anything ever happened, I'd want them to come to me. So I'd want to keep that channel open. And I can see where a lot of men and then parents, it's not to be discussed. If things aren't to be discussed, they go into the shadows. And then you're fucked. Because it just leads to, a lot of problems, a lot of delusion, a lot of justification for bad things. And it can cross your wires where it can really hurt you for decades.
If you want your children to come to you, you have to have consistently open lines of communication. And that starts with things like your response to grades. It starts with things like your response to how they are managing their workload. Are you yelling at them and expecting them to do better without any guidance? Are you having open conversations about, I don't know, different things that might be better for the kid, right? Like, hey, I don't know, we can use our baby as a very good example. She is, oh my God, great. She is not a people pleaser. And so she is not driven by the American school system to get good grades in order to whatever. No. She invests her time and her energy into things that she feels are worthy of that. And so it is forever a tightrope here in this house of, we know, our whole parenting cohort knows that if we burn this bridge, right? If we just spend all of our time yelling at her, yeah, chances are that she's not going to want to get yelled at with other things too. And I think we forget that, yeah, sex education sometimes looks like remembering, if I'm really mean here, my kid's probably not going to knock on my door later and come tell me about the hard day they had trying to break up with their boyfriend, but then feeling like they couldn't.
That takes a lot of wisdom and patience as a parent.
It's so hard.
Yeah, for the baby, we don't want to micromanage her. We want her to get her shit done. Unfortunately, she needs to be micromanaged in order to get her shit done. So this week's been unique where I've kind of taken the lead on homework and stuff like that. And I think our first meeting together, I was quite stern. And I had to, after our meeting, I was like, wait a minute. I don't want to scare her. I don't want to intimidate her. I don't yell. I got that modeled, and so that got filtered out a long time ago.
You're not a yeller.
When I get angry, I get quiet.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I'll yell at myself, and that's getting filtered out too. So, yeah, I declared to the baby, I go, what did I say? I just said, hey, I want this to be more of we're on the same side in order to get it done, where it's almost a partnership or a co-op, not a manager subordinate type thing, even though I'm in a leadership position. So, yeah, so my job is to be lighter and to ask questions. And one of the more healthy things that we did, we set a goal of getting everything done Sunday by 5 o'clock. It didn't get done. So there weren't consequences. It was okay. Like, let's inventory our time. How much time do you think you spent? It's 9 to 5 right now. So it's like, what did we do the last 8 hours? How much time do you think you spent playing video games? She's like, 3 hours. Like, okay, I just wrote it down. How much time do you think you spent on your phone? I don't know, like an hour. Okay, wrote it down. How much time do you think you spent like watching YouTube? And she goes, oh, I was doing my homework while I was watching YouTube. I go, okay, how many assignments did you get done? She's like, 2 out of 6 of them. I go, okay. And so, you know, anyway, point is, it's an open channel because she's, for the most part, being honest with me. Yeah, I mean, maybe there's shaved a couple of hours here and there, but who doesn't? Who doesn't want a couple hours on their time slip? But it's like, she's not going to get, in football, we called it motherfucked, where somebody just gets fucking yelled at. You're not going to motherfuck. You're not going to curse somebody out. So my job is to make sure that we're on the same page. Yeah.
And think of that life skills here that are being learned as opposed to this drawing conclusions in the mind, right? What young people will often do.
It's 10:07, just in case you need to go.
Thank you. It's a 10:30.
Okay, great.
Client.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you though, because I was thinking, oh great, another hour. We don't have that. I need to be done. Young people will draw conclusions, right? If we don't guide them through this process, who's doing it, right? Their own psyche are like, oh, okay, well, this happened. Okay, it must be because of this. And then all the different bodies and minds will draw different conclusions. I'm a bad person. I'm not responsible. I don't know how. I'm a failure. They will hear the motherfucking words that come flying at them. And they'll make little conclusions in their minds because they're young people. And unless the alternate is we can help guide them and stumble through and learn these kids. I had to go, so that was Sunday. And then Monday I had to pick the baby up from school for something. And it's just always so cool to me because I know what this kid is getting grade-wise. You wouldn't know any of that by walking into school because teachers, she has such beautiful relationships with the teachers, with the staff, with the counselors, with her classmates. I'm like, what is more important? These good grades or that my child has flourishing relationships with everyone in this school?
Oh, shoot, we're talking about some kind of life sciences exercise where you have to read paragraphs and answer questions. She goes, I'm never going to use this. And I go, absolutely, you are never going to use this. This is more of, can you finish? Can you jump through hoops and finish? And you know what you are going to use? If you can jump through these hoops, you're going to get more freedom with us when you go around town. You're going to get more cash in your pocket. You're going to get more, oh yeah, we can take you on these things. You're going to get more social currency or power or whatever you want to call it. And she kind of looked at me, her little eyes got a little bit bigger. Where she goes, fuck, you're right.
Right.
So yes, I acknowledge 90% of what you learn is bullshit. You need to learn how to read, you need to learn how to fucking write, and you need to learn how to use a calculator for 99% of the jobs that you're going to do out there. And other than that, just jump through the hoops. That's what college was for me. That's what grad school was for me. I am degreed to the gills. I need to know how to text and be responsible to the people that I work with.
This was a fascinating conversation. Fascinating. I found research once that the majority of adults are uncomfortable talking about sexually related topics with young people.
It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for me. There's something in my body at the beginning of this podcast where it's like, this is uncomfortable. To refer to like a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old as like a sexual being, because not yet. My mind is like, well, we want to protect them from that. That's not appropriate yet. But they're little sexual beings in what, 10 fucking years they're going through puberty, maybe less.
But see, this is the thing. The reason that most adults are afraid to speak openly with children about these things is because they are insecure and uncomfortable with their own understanding of sexuality. So I would challenge you.
I'm still learning.
Yes. When we say a child is an inherently sexual being, we are deciding that that means partnered with another person. Where did people get off thinking
expressing
that
their sexuality?
Sex, yes, that is not what I'm saying.
Fucking gross.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's not right. Being an inherent sexual being means being complete in and of oneself. Having an awareness of, yes, I have genitals. I do. And I also know that I have a right to protect my own body, that I have agency and autonomy here in myself, that I'll be okay on my own. Sexuality is not always something that we intermingle with another person. Sexuality is not something that we take, that we interact, that wheel of consent and all this stuff. No, we need to remember that first and foremost, we are human beings with agency and autonomy in and of ourselves. That is what is important for a little one to know. So when we're putting this adult brain in a kid, no, right? And that's what's so fascinating to me is that the research shows that the reason most of adults don't have open and honest conversations with young children, adolescents, young adults is because they're uncomfortable with their own lack of comfortability.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
And it's okay not to be the expert. Hire one or click the links to get lots of books. I have favorite authors. Or let your child lead. Kids are crazy brilliant these days. And get curious with them. We don't have to have all the answers. Yeah, this was a random subject that we talked about, but thank you. I don't even remember why we talked about this today. You're just blinking at me. I love you.
I love you too. Sorry, I was spacing out.
I know. I'm going to wrap up. Thanks for coming to this episode of the Partnership Podcast. It's Lauren and Trey. Remember, these are opinions, literally opinions, even though I like research. If you are like, hey, I actually would like to talk to somebody about this, you can go to sexedforyou.com/free consult and request a free consult with me. And we can chat about, maybe you're a parent and you're like, holy shit, I do not have this stuff figured out. We can talk about it and see if we're a good fit. Please remember that you have a right to self-determination and informed decision-making. Take what you like from this podcast, leave the rest. I want to acknowledge that this might have made a lot of people uncomfortable. This is an uncomfortable conversation. And
I agree.
Yeah, it just is for a lot of people.
But having the conversation also clarifies it.
Yeah.
This is very nuanced.
Yep.
If you don't subscribe to nuance, go fuck yourself.
Go learn a little.
That's a nice way of saying it too.
There are going to be great books in the link. So please, if you're uncomfortable, click the links that I share.
Dangerous, never and always.
Yeah.
Never and always.
We've tried to strike it from our vocabulary with one another. Yeah. It's interesting how often
never
my
supposed to
couples
talk about
will talk
this
about it. Yeah.
It's dangerous.
It's an absolute, and it doesn't leave space for growth and curiosity. And if that's what you feel coming up in your body, oh, gentle audience, I sit with that for a second.
Yeah.
And do some research. It's okay if it's scary. I understand that many of us were told that these subject matters are scary. One of my favorite things that clients ever said at the end of sessions was, I always say, like, what's been your greatest lesson or what's something, and they said, I thought that what was going to be behind the other side of this door was going to be really frightening. I said, oh, okay, like, what was it instead? She said, educated decision making. And I was like, oh, because she said with knowledge, with it understanding, now I am able, this was a parent of 3 or 4 kids, to provide developmentally appropriate education for each of my kids at the stage that they are ready for it.
Yeah, cool.
That it wasn't this free-for-all, right? That because she had grown up in a religiously conservative world. It wasn't that at all. No, it was at the stage that the child is ready for it, presenting different choices for that child to make that's appropriate for their body, letting them know that there's this open line of communication, right? It just... she was just smiling ear to ear. She was like, I thought it was so scary, and that's because no one had ever taken the time to educate me. So I was scared of the unknown, but now on the other side of the door, it's just educated decision making.
Good.
On my own terms. I'm like, because you're the parent.
Good.
Yeah. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.